In 1945, Italy lay in ruin. Daylight bombing raids by the Americans had destroyed the country's infrastructure. Most manufacturing areas had been blitzed, including Milan, home of the Innocenti engineering firm, while roads and railways had been bombed to all the retreating Germans. Supported financially by the Americans, the Italian government was offering grants to companies that could provide basic transport. Having installed up-to-date equipment, Innocenti used Fordist mass production techniques as Italy experienced its industrial revolution in 1946. Contemplated during the war and designed as a long-term industrial project, the first Lambretta rolled off the production line in 1947. Scooters remobilised Italy. They cost less than cars and provided transportation for the whole family. Designed to be stylish in times of national drudgery, they became symbols of hope. From 1950 to 1951, there was an increase of 50% in road traffic in Italy. Of that, 80% were scooters. Innocenti orchestrated a marketing plan that was to shift millions of Lambrettas worldwide. Their simple, clean usability was designed to pull in a whole new group of consumers. By the early 1950s, the Italian-style machine was riding on the wave of modernism. The streamlined jet set were going places.
Inventiamo qualcosa che vi faccia strabiliare, un cocktail fatto di genialità, di dinamismo, di eleganza, di potenza, tutto quello che può darti la felicità. Prendiamo due ruote e le mettiamo qua, un bel motore che veloce va, poi ci mettiamo un bel fanale ed un clacson dalla voce originale che ti fa. In ogni strada suonerà, scooter nuova linea porterà. Freno a disco, novità. Mischiamo bene tutto quanto ed ecco qua, il motoscooter di gran qualità, con sicurezza e con velocità. In capo al mondo in un festoso giro tondo, la Lambretta in allegria vi porterà.
E dopo la Lambretta che inventiamo?
Inventiamo il Lambretta Twist! Lambretta Twist!
In gonnellino balli Lambretta Twist.
Say, there's something wrong. The motor backfires. It's not pulling and it won't start.
Oh, that's terrible.
An international network of dealers and workshops was set up to ensure that scootering lived up to its problem-free, easy-to-use image, while recently introduced hire purchase schemes made scooters ever more accessible to the public. In 1959, over half of the 330,000 new two-wheelers in Britain were scooters. Innocenti did more than produce a stylish scooter. Scootering was engineered to be more than a two-wheeled form of transportation. The scooter was conceived as a major social appliance. It became a popular pastime. The manufacturers pushed this hard, encouraging scooters to join their clubs. The Lambretta Club of Great Britain brought out its own magazine, the Jet Set, while rallies, runs and games were staged, which all went to build on the glamorous image being pushed by the manufacturers. Scooters had been much maligned, hairdryers and mobile cake mixers being but two popular epithets. Great pains were taken to display the supposedly feminine machine's masculine prowess by overcoming the hardest obstacles. Scooters took part in the 600-mile Milan-Taranto race and even held their own Isle of Man TT. However, in the early 60s, the humble scooter became a symbol of menace as a new moral panic was born.
It seems strange to see this procession of miserable specimens. These long-haired, mentally unstable, petty little hoodlums, these sawdust Caesars, who can only find courage, like rats, by hunting in packs, came to Brighton with the avowed intent of interfering with the life and property of its inhabitants.
Why don't you all fade away? Don't try to dig what we all say. Try to cause a big sensation. Just talking about my generation.
The scooters were bad enough that I ever had to mean that I did not ever risk, say, driving all the way to the south coast or something of that sort, if I remember rightly. We knew that wouldn't happen. Now, they were largely used for just touring the area, you know, just going out for a spin, or travelling from the suburbs back into London for gigs and things of that sort.
Over 30 years later, the Lambretta and its nearest rival, the Vespa, retain their international cult status.
Yeah?
in Japan also there are a lot of mods, and I think first of all they start to ride Vespa, but they will notice after that the Lambretta is better than Vespa, so they change to the Lambretta. Yeah.
I think the Lambretta's got the styling. I mean, obviously from the early days of 47 right the way through, it's a slimmer scooter. The engine's in the centre, and I think really the Vespa hasn't changed so very much. And in the 50s it looked quite nice, but you know through the years the Lambretta sort of changed. And I think the Lambreta's a nice looking scooter.
I personally like the sleekness of it rather than a Vespa that's a bit bulbous. So definitely a Lambretta now.
To me, they sort of sum up a certain era in design, really, which hasn't been, I don't know, equalled yet, really. It's that sort of futuristic, future-looking sort of era, yeah, the early 60s, you know, and everything was bright and happy and on the go.
Lambretta's definitely the looks. They look better than any other scooter, especially the GP, which is my favourite model. Looks better than any other scooter I think ever manufactured. Also Lambrettas, the engines are pretty simple. You only need sort of a mild mechanical knowledge and a small engineering skill, and you can take apart and rebuild an engine pretty simply.
It's the skinhead side of it what goes with it as well, not just the scooter. So like the skinhead cult as well.
I like the style. I think that's what it is. I think the style of the bike itself. Because I used to ride motorbikes. I had BSA Bantams and Triumph Tiger Cubs before I was 17, and got on a scooter, and that was it. That was the end of it for me.
A church hall in Weston-super-Mare houses probably the largest collection of Lambrettas in the UK. Nigel Cox, the owner, is sitting on a veritable gold mine.
Well, I first had scooters in 1967 when I was 16, but the first real dealings in Lambrettas, because I had Vespas in those days, was about 13 years ago when I picked up an SX200 for £10, and with that I bought that one and got it running, and advertised for some more, and then started collecting the older ones. And obviously the parts are very difficult, all the original parts are. A lot has been remade in Italy now, but many of the parts I bought from the old dealers in England first, and then I've been to Argentina. They had a factory in Argentina. I've been to Sweden, Malta, Cyprus. Basically anywhere that I can find parts I go. The Lambrettas are obviously a timeless thing, but I mean it's not just the scooters themselves. I mean, as you see when you've looked round, I mean it's everything that went with it, the whole packaging with Lambretta. I mean, especially in England, I mean it was very carefully thought out. I mean, people wanted to sell these scooters, and the publicity, the sales leaflets, the posters, the signs, the advertising, lots of national papers. It was, I mean, in those days it was a very big business, and it's nice to collect the paperwork and the things that went with it. I mean, a scooter would probably someone would keep in the garage for 20 years, but the promotion from a TB175 Series 3 ran probably for 2 years, and then after that they moved on to an SX200, and people didn't keep the piece of paper, so that is probably much harder to find on the scooters now.
Well, the appeal is when if you're on a motorway or something and you go past a Porsche in the outside lane, and they look out their window and they think, bloody hell, what was that, and you tend to find when you do things like that, when you stop in the services, they come over to you and say, oh, what have you done to your bike? And you just like wind them up a bit and tell them it's totally standard, and the next day you'll probably find they're out trying to buy one for themselves. So at the moment, race bikes tend to do stupid speeds, and there's people putting race engines into their road bikes and doing sort of 100 miles an hour at the moment.
Do you think that's safe on those small wheels?
If the bikes are put together properly, well maintained, and the brakes are uprated and suspension, yeah, they're, you've got to be a bit of an idiot to ride one, but I would have thought it was safe.
Well, it certainly isn't a feeling of power, because there isn't any. Not in this one anyway, not in this particular model. There's very little power at all. I mean, a lot of people do, like soup them up and get a hell of a lot of, like better performance out of them because they've spent a lot of money doing the engines up, and maybe then they'd get a real sort of like, like sort of like throaty, sort of speedy power. But I mean, I didn't go any more than 50 miles an hour on this. I wouldn't feel safe any more than that on it, at all.
Lambrettas, sex on wheels, but if they go wrong, they're a bastard.
It's usually either fuel, i.e. not enough oil in the petrol, you get a lot of seizures, or electrical faults. Non-starting. You often see the old scooters pushing the Lambrettas down the road.
What's wrong with it? So what's wrong with it?
It's fucked, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I suppose the worst part. The worst thing that happens to them, being a two-stroke, is they do heat seize, and that's like that's when, obviously when you're going pretty, like obviously too fast and faster than you should be going sensibly, and you will sort of like, and what happens then is the piston swells up, jams in the barrel, and you're over the sort of handlebars before you know it. If I go on this one or one of the other ones, if I'm going sort of more than 50, I'll always have my hand on the clutch ready to whack it in, ready to pull it in real quick, just in case you get that sort of like feeling and that, that's the major thing about them. And the other thing is, things like blowouts and that. If you do get blowouts and you're going quite fast with such small wheels, you're in a bit of trouble really. You could be all over the place and that. And I suppose the biggest bugbear of them is like electrics and that. They all seem to sort of really bog up on the electrics, and a lot of people who do repairs won't touch them. They won't touch electrics because they've always, in the last sort of 30 years of their life of the bike, someone's obviously could have put a lot of cable flex, like telephone cable flex in there, a lot of dodgy earths to God knows whatever, and it's a real sort of like, it's a real puzzle to try and work out, like where it's all going and that, It's best to rip the whole lot out and put a new loom in,
The main problem used to be with the ignitions. A lot of people never used to know how to set them up and keep points adjusted properly. And then, as soon as this was brought onto the market, an AF electronic ignition with a light and flywheel, which helps the life of your magneto bearing and also helps your bike accelerate quicker. Very good on tuned engines. As soon as this was brought onto the market, no more points, set it up once and it should stay like it forever. Also 12-volt lights, so you can actually see where you're going at night. I think once these come out, was that everybody sort of gave up their Vespas and started the trend back to Lambrettas again, because they then had nice reliable scooters not relying on 20-year-old Duff ignition systems.
We'll pull up once on the motorway, luggage falling off, chain snapping, brake seizing up, throttle seizing open, which is worse than we're trying to stop.
There is quite a few specialist tools, but people who've been in it as long as I have, we use the number one. Number one. Well, I don't even know what the name of it is now. I've had it so long, but it works wonders.
I seem to spend more time sat down here, tinkering about with it than I do riding the thing. Well, my girlfriend doesn't like it, She's forever saying, "Oh, you don't spend any time with me. It's the bike." Well, I don't get any grief from it. That's why. Well, I do get grief from it actually, but it's worth it. Yeah. And I do spend all my money on it as well, which is, I suppose another bone of contention.
It seems the prices go up and up every week, so I think I'm sat on a gold mine with the bikes I've got. So mainly down at the moment, people's interest in the 1960s. Seems to be a lot of people that had scooters in the 60s and 70s that are trying to buy them to recapture their youth at the moment, and seems they've been working and stuff, probably paid their mortgages off and got good jobs now. They can afford to pay a lot of money for bikes that younger people can't afford. So.
Generally the price of the scooters are going up and the price of the parts are coming down. Basically, in Italy a lot of people had the moulds and the tooling, and that's all been dragged out, so although you might have to pay more to buy a scooter now, you're going to find the parts and the plastic runners, the rubber strips and the badges much easier and cheaper to find. whereas 4 or 5 years ago the scooters were difficult to find, and so were the parts really. So I mean, overall, I suppose it's. I think we've really reached the stage this year. 1998 will probably be the year. I don't think they'll go up any further than they've gone now. A restored scooter, £3,500. I think that's the most people will want to pay. Basically, there's different markets now. I mean, we've got a lot of people like myself in the 40s and 50s who had scooters that either have kept them or they want to buy one now. They've got a family and they can afford to do it. And of course, there's a lot of young people. You've got lots of bands, Oasis, Paul Weller. Anyone like that is a fashion statement, as it was for me in the 60s. I mean, it's, you know, you had a scooter, you had the clothes, and that's all part of it. Those sort of people probably keep them for a year or a couple of years, but there's a lot of hardcore people who've got more than one. I mean, obviously I have a big collection, but there's lots of people with lots of scooters. I mean, 30 and 40 scooters, and people tend to collect them, and I think these people will keep them, you know, probably till the day they die.
State of the market, bloody outrageous. Well, it's not so bad. If you've got a few tucked away in the garage to sell, then it's good. But if you haven't, I mean, you know, and you're looking to buy one, I mean, you're up shit creek really, because it's just not. It just isn't easy to get hold of one for less than sort of like, I don't know, 500 quid. You can buy a complete and utter shed for sort of 300 or 400 quid, but I mean, you've got to spend about at least sort of another 500 quid doing it up, making it roadworthy and that, you know. Not even decent looking, you know, like it's going to cost you, I don't know, £1,000 or so to do something like that out. A hell of a lot of them got trashed in the sort of late 70s, early 80s, people cutting them down, making them to choppers, sticking bits of lampposts in them and extending them and God knows else what and that, you know, tying bathtubs to them and racing them. And also I think a lot of them probably just got scrambled and, you know, like thrown away or used as sort of like, you know, like just fun bikes really and that, you know. But I think for the most part they did get, a lot of them got trashed and they're pretty much irreplaceable really. I mean, you can, there's only a certain amount of frames made, and you can build onto those frames and that, but once those frames are gone, it's pretty, yeah, it's very hard. Yeah, like it's not like building a motorbike frame. I mean, it's going to be hard to reproduce a Lambretta frame. I mean, there's probably millions of panels around and millions of engines, you know, literally, but not that many frames that you can build up on that, you know.
Well, when we talk about Lambretta prices from 4 years ago till now, and they've tripled in value, and it's going to go up and up. House prices are going up, wages are going up, the youngsters have got more money to spend, and I can honestly say at the end of the year, a TV200 or an SX200 in really good condition will top £4,000. Silly prices, silly money. But it's supply and demand. If you've got it, and they want it, they'll pay whatever you ask them.
It's a style thing, a fashion thing, I suppose, isn't it? People really want to buy them. I mean, they're being exported to sort of like America. I'd have liked to go to Germany and Japan, and those people are prepared to pay a lot of money, so that pushes the prices up, really. I mean, even people back here now are paying a lot of money, you know, like sort of, yeah, like £2,000 upwards and that, you know, like £2,500, £3,000 and that for a really nice bike. Whereas, I mean, you could have picked up, yeah, like a decent-looking, I don't know, bike like this. I mean, which is all right. I mean, it's all original condition at that. I mean, I got this for 300 quid, whereas now you'd pay about £1,000 for that, you know. I mean, and that's not even particularly nicely done up. It's just original, you know.
It's like when you've got the bands like Oasis and like Ocean Colour Scenes and stuff that are like riding around on them. It's like the companies put the prices up because they know that it's like a rare thing. Because when you find that, you know, when things become popular, it's easy to get hold of them, but when things become part of cult, it's more expensive. Because people know that there are people out there that want to pay, and if they've got money, they'll do it. So it becomes like a bit of a yuppie's toy in a way sometimes. Can you afford to buy one? No way. No, I'm a student, so I'm earning about 50 quid a week. I couldn't even afford to take driving lessons or own a car. It's just not happening. And it's probably more expensive to buy a scooter nowadays than it is a car. You can get a cheap car for 400 quid, but it's not with scooters. Even there's a second-hand place up on just off Park Street, and there's like some of them are like really bad, but it's like maybe £2,000 and stuff. So I haven't got the money.
It's definitely a pleasure to get away at the weekend on your scooter, you know, to a different place, get out of you know, the town that you spend most of your life in for a weekend.
Yeah, the social aspect of it's quite fun, and that, because you get to meet a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life. A lot of sort of like people that you'd never normally sort of like really meet and that, really, because you live different lifestyles or whatever. But you've got a common denominator, which is interesting, sort of like Lambrettas, scooters in general or whatever. And I don't know, then like I said, you get to meet people that you wouldn't normally meet, and it's good. And you go away sort of like weekends or whatever, you know, down to the Isle of Wight or something like that, have a good fun and have a good sort of piss up and whatever. But like it's a sort of good, I don't know, it's a good talking point really, because if you've got nothing, if you don't really know the person that well, at least you can sort of sit in the pub for 4 hours and talk about bloody conversions and the price of leg shields and that on the sort of like scooter exchange market and have such dullness. I mean, to anybody else listening would just think it was absolutely trivial crap, but I mean to you it's sort of like the all-important sort of like, how much did that light rim cost? Oh, that's not so bad, I get it re-chromed for 20 and I do this and do that. I mean it's one way that it's something that it's brilliant, because you get to meet all these people and they will be able to set you on the right path to sort of one bit or this, or somebody will do a bit of welding, someone will be able to sort of get hold of like loads of a certain bit, and someone else will have a garage full of sort of like, you know, like crap like this and that you can sort of go and rifle through, you know, like you need the old barrel, the odd bit. I mean, like I said before, most of the bits that you want are available. I mean, every single bit you need to repair one is now available, you know, like, because they've all either been remachined, remade, or just sort of like discovered in basements, you know, like in Italy or whatever, you know, like in some old shop. But it's better to sort of like, if you've got like a network of people that you know, you can just sort of get it for a fraction of the price, you know, do a bit of swapping here and there. The most fascinating part of them is the way that is the reason why they developed on that, is like a cheap personal transport for sort of everybody, completely affordable for any sort of like class, and they seem to cross the whole sort of like social divide. I mean, you'd have sort of, I don't know, people, the vicar's wife going to sort of a tea party on it, then you have another sort of like hooligan young sort of 16-year-olds tearing off down to Brighton and sort of ripping the place up and that. And it was a real completely cross all borders machine that sort of revolutionised transport in 50s and early 60s and that, really. I mean, it was something that was needed, something to fill the gap, but also something, it wasn't completely functional because they looked, you know, like really nice as well. And they really did get that right. They got that aspect of it sort of perfect, you know. I mean, the mechanics on some of them might leave a little bit to be desired these days and that, but they still, you know, like they still have the edge on all other motorbikes or scooters as far as I'm concerned. And that edge is that they look, you know, like spot on, beauty, marvellous.
Fucking evil bike.
I suppose it's a bit of a love-hate thing, really. You know? Yeah.
True mods, if you know what I mean. They'll just sell their children to get Lambrettas.